David was having the worst week of his life. His laptop crashed right before a big project deadline, his landlord raised the rent again, and his car made that weird noise that probably meant expensive repairs. He sat in his tiny apartment, staring at bills he couldn't pay, wondering how his life had gotten so messy. Then his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize, but these days he answered every call hoping it might be work. "Hello, is this David Richardson?" asked a woman's professional voice. "Yes, that's me. This is Jennifer Martinez from Martinez and Associates Law Firm. I need to speak with you about your great-uncle Theodore Richardson. Do you have a moment?" David frowned. Uncle Theodore. He barely remembered the man. Maybe they met once at some family gathering when David was 8 or 9. Theodore was that weird relative everyone whispered about, the one who lived alone in the mountains and never came to family events. "I'm sorry to inform you that your great-uncle passed away last month," the lawyer continued. "According to his will, you are his sole heir." David nearly dropped the phone. "I'm sorry, what?" "There must be some mistake. I hardly knew the guy." "No mistake, Mr. Richardson. Theodore was very specific. He's left you his entire estate, including his property and all assets. We need to meet as soon as possible to discuss the details." 3 days later, David found himself driving up a winding mountain road in his rattling car, following GPS directions to a place he'd never been. The lawyer had given him an address and a set of keys, but she'd been strangely vague about what exactly he was inheriting. "It's a substantial property," she'd said. "Your uncle was quite wealthy, though he lived very privately. You'll understand more when you see it." The road got narrower and more isolated as he climbed higher into the Washington Mountains. Pine. Trees pressed close on both sides, and he hadn't seen another car for miles. Just when he started wondering if he'd taken a wrong turn, the trees opened up to reveal massive iron gates. David pulled up to an electronic keypad and tried the code the lawyer had given him. The gates swung open silently, revealing a long driveway that curved through perfectly maintained gardens. His beat-up Honda looked ridiculous next to the marble fountains and expensive landscaping. Then he saw the house. It wasn't just a house. It was more like a modern castle made of glass and stone, sprawling across the hilltop with views of the entire valley below. Solar panels covered parts of the roof, and David could see what looked like satellite dishes and other equipment he couldn't identify. "Holy cow," he whispered, parking his car next to a garage that was bigger than his apartment. Inside, the house was even more impressive. Everything was clean and modern, but also somehow timeless. The furniture looked expensive but comfortable. Huge windows let in natural light that made the whole place feel warm and welcoming. Art hung on the walls, not prints, but what looked like original paintings worth more than David made in a year. But the strangest thing was how the house felt lived in, even though Theodore had been gone for a month. Fresh flowers sat in vases. The refrigerator was fully stocked. Someone had been taking care of this place. David spent hours exploring. There were 8 bedrooms, a library with thousands of books, a home theater, and a kitchen that belonged in a fancy restaurant. Every room had technology he'd never seen before. Control panels built into the walls, lighting that seemed to respond to his presence, and screens that activated when he walked by. The basement was where things got really weird. He found the entrance behind a bookshelf that moved when he accidentally leaned on it. Stone steps led down to what looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Banks of computers lined the walls, humming quietly. Monitors displayed data in languages he couldn't read. And in the center of the room was what could only be described as a medical pod, a sleek, egg-shaped chamber filled with some kind of clear fluid. What the heck was Uncle Theodore up to? David muttered, walking around the strange equipment. That's when he saw the living area. It was clearly designed for someone, but not someone human. The furniture was the wrong proportions. Too tall, too narrow. The lighting had an odd blue tint, and the air felt different down here, almost electric. David was taking pictures with his phone when he heard it. A soft humming sound that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The screens around the room flickered to life, displaying symbols that definitely weren't from any human language. Then the air in front of him began to shimmer. David stumbled backward as a figure began to materialize, translucent at first, then becoming more solid. It was clearly female in shape, but unlike any human he'd ever seen. Her skin had a faint blue tint and seemed to glow with its own light. Her hair floated as if she were underwater, and her eyes were larger than human eyes, with irises that shifted, color like oil on water. She was beautiful, but definitely not human. David's brain couldn't process what he was seeing. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The alien woman stepped forward, and when she spoke, her voice was like music with an accent he couldn't place. "Please do not be afraid," she said gently. "You must be Theodore's nephew. I am Lyra. I have been waiting for you." David finally found his voice. "What? Who? Are you real?" Lyra smiled sadly. "Very real, I'm afraid. I know this is shocking. Theodore told me that if anything happened to him, I should explain everything to his heir. That would be you." "Explain what?" You're not human." "No, I am not. I am from a planet your people call Kepler 442b, though we know it by another name. I came to Earth 20 years ago and have been living here under Theodore's protection ever since." David sat down hard in one of the strange chairs, his legs suddenly weak. "This isn't happening. I'm dreaming. Or having a breakdown." "I understand your shock. Theodore had much the same reaction when we first met." Lyra moved with fluid grace, like she was dancing rather than walking. "But there is more you need to know. According to the laws of my people, I was bound to Theodore through a protection contract. Now that he is gone and you have inherited his property, that contract transfers to you." "What does that mean?" Lyra's expression became serious. "It means, David Richardson, that I am now your responsibility. And according to my people's customs—" She paused, as if the words were difficult to say. "It means I am now bound to you as your companion until you choose to release me, or until one of us dies." The room seemed to spin around David. Not only had he inherited a fortune and a mansion, but apparently he'd also inherited an alien wife. "Now I am all yours," Lyra said quietly, her voice filled with resignation and something that might have been hope. "Whether you want me or not." David stared at this impossible woman who had just turned his entire understanding of reality upside down. His morning had started with unpaid bills and a broken laptop. Now he was apparently rich beyond his dreams and responsible for a being from another world. His simple life had just become incredibly complicated. But as he looked into Lyra's shifting, colorful eyes, David realized that for the first time in years he wasn't bored. Whatever this was, whatever it meant, his life had definitely gotten interesting. "I think," he said slowly, "we need to talk." David spent the next 3 hours sitting in that strange basement, listening to the most incredible story he'd ever heard. Lyra made tea. Somehow she knew exactly how he liked it, which was just another weird thing to add to the growing list. 20 years ago, my world was dying," Lyra explained, her voice soft but steady. "Our sun was becoming unstable, and our planet's atmosphere was breaking down. My people sent out exploration teams to find new homes among the stars." She showed him holographic images that appeared in the air above her palm. David saw a world of crystal cities and floating gardens, beautiful but clearly abandoned. "I was a scientist and healer on the exploration ship that reached your solar system. We were supposed to study Earth and report back, but our return transport was destroyed by an asteroid collision. I was the only survivor who made it to your planet's surface. David shook his head. But how did you end up with my uncle? Theodore found me 3 days after I crashed in these very mountains. I was badly injured and barely conscious. Instead of calling your government authorities, he brought me here and helped me heal. Lyra's eyes grew distant. He was a kind man, your uncle. Very lonely, but kind. So you've been living here all this time? Hidden away? Theodore built this place for me. The basement is designed to match the atmosphere of my home world as closely as possible. Without it, I would have died long ago. She gestured around them. But it's more than just a shelter. It's been my laboratory. That's when Lyra began showing David things that made his head spin. She could make electricity dance between her fingers like it was alive. When she touched a broken lamp, it suddenly worked perfectly again. She demonstrated how she could heal cuts on her own skin just by concentrating. My people evolved differently than humans, she explained. We learned to work with energy directly. Electromagnetic fields, bioelectric currents, even quantum vibrations. What you call technology, we consider as natural as breathing. David watched in amazement as she fixed his broken phone just by holding it. This is incredible. You're like a superhero or something. Lyra laughed, a sound like silver bells. Not superhero, just different. But these abilities come with a cost. Her expression grew serious. I need certain minerals that exist only on my home world. Theodore spent years finding synthetic alternatives, but they're not perfect. Without them, I become weak and eventually... What? Eventually I die. The weight of responsibility hit David like a truck. This wasn't just about having an alien roommate. Lyra's life literally depended on his help now. There's something else you need to understand, Lyra continued. Theodore wasn't just a hermit living in the mountains. He was brilliant. A genius inventor who used my knowledge to create technologies your world had never seen. She led him to another room filled with prototypes and blueprints. David saw designs for engines that ran on almost no fuel, medical, devices that could heal injuries in minutes, and computers that made the most advanced human technology look like stone tools. Theodore never sold these directly. He was too smart for that. Instead, he created shell companies and released the technologies slowly, making them seem like natural human innovations. The patents and profits from just a few of these inventions made him incredibly wealthy. David's eyes widened. You mean all those billions I inherited came from your technology? Our technology, Lyra corrected gently. Theodore and I worked together. He understood business and human nature. I understood the science. It was a true partnership. Over the next few days, David tried to wrap his head around his new reality. He moved into the mansion permanently. His old apartment seemed like a shoebox compared to this place. Lyra showed him how everything worked, from the advanced security systems to the hidden passages that connected different parts of the house. The strangest part was getting used to Lyra herself. She was fascinating to watch, the way she moved. Like she was floating, how her skin glowed brighter when she was happy, the way she could understand any language just by listening to it for a few minutes. But she was also surprisingly normal in some ways. She loved human music, especially jazz. She was terrible at cooking, but great at fixing things. She laughed at silly movies and cried during sad ones. I spent years studying your people through Theodore's television and internet, she explained one evening as they watched a comedy together. Human emotions are so intense, so pure. My people were more controlled, less passionate. Don't you miss them? David asked. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Every day. But missing and belonging are different things. This has been my home longer than anywhere else now. Their peaceful adjustment period ended abruptly on a Tuesday morning. David was making breakfast when the security alarm started blaring. Lyra appeared instantly, her skin bright with alarm. Someone's at the outer perimeter, she said, her voice tight with worry. Multiple vehicles. This is not normal. David looked at the security monitors and saw 3 black SUVs parked outside the gates. Men in dark suits were setting up some kind of electronic equipment. Who are they? David asked. I don't know, but they're scanning for energy signatures. They're looking for me. Lyra's hands began to glow with nervous energy. Theodore always said this day might come. There are people in your government who suspect that non-human technology exists. They've been searching for proof for decades. The main gate's intercom crackled to life. This is Agent Wilson with Homeland Security. We need to speak with the property owner regarding unusual electromagnetic readings from this location. David and Lyra looked at each other. This was their first real test as partners. What do we do? David whispered. Lyra's expression grew determined. We protect each other. Theodore made me promise that if this happened, I would keep you safe. Now I am all yours, David, which means you are under my protection too. Before David could ask what she meant, Lyra placed her hand on the house's main control panel. Every screen in the building lit up, and David felt a strange tingling in the air. Whatever Lyra was doing, it was big. I'm creating an electromagnetic shield around the property, she explained, her voice strained with concentration. It will make their scanners show false readings, but it won't hold for long. Through the monitors, they watched the agents looking confused as their equipment gave wildly different readings every few seconds. That should buy us some time, Lyra said, but David could see the effort was exhausting her. But David, you need to understand something. This is just the beginning. Now that I've used my abilities defensively, they'll know for certain that something unusual is here. They won't give up easily. David felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. A week ago, his biggest worry was paying rent. Now he was protecting an alien from government agents in a mansion full of incredible technology. But as he looked at Lyra, this amazing, impossible woman who had somehow become the most important thing in his world, David realized he wasn't afraid anymore. He was ready to fight for her, just like she was ready to fight for him. Then we'll face whatever comes together, David said firmly. You said you're all mine now, right? Well, that works both ways. I'm all yours too. Lyra smiled, and for the first time since the alarms started, her glow softened into something warm and grateful. Outside, the agents were packing up their equipment, frustrated by the false readings. But David knew they'd be back. The easy part of their relationship was over. Now the real adventure was about to begin. The weeks after the government agent's visit changed everything between David and Lyra. They weren't just strangers sharing a house anymore. They were partners working together to protect something bigger than both of them. David threw himself into learning about Theodore's business empire. The old man had been incredibly clever, creating dozens of small companies that slowly released Lyra's technologies to the world. Clean energy batteries, medical scanners that could detect diseases years early, computer processors that worked 10 times faster than anything else on the market, all of it based on Lyra's knowledge of how energy really worked. Your uncle was brilliant at making alien technology look like human innovation, Lyra explained as they went through financial records in Theodore's study. He would take one of my designs, break it down into smaller pieces, then have different companies discover each piece separately over several years. David was amazed at the scope of it all. So that new heart monitor that saved my neighbor's life last month? Based on bioelectric field mapping from my world? Yes. And the solar panels that made energy cheap enough for everyone to afford? Those use quantum absorption techniques my people developed centuries ago. But David's favorite part was watching Lyra discover Earth culture. She was fascinated by human creativity, spending hours listening to music, studying paintings, and reading poetry. She said humans expressed emotions in ways her people never could. Your species feels everything so intensely, she told him one evening as they watched the sunset from the mansion's roof garden. Love, anger, hope, sadness. It's all so powerful. My people learned to control their emotions long ago. We thought it made us wiser. But watching humans, I think maybe we lost something important. Their relationship deepened gradually. David found himself looking forward to their morning conversations over coffee. Lyra started sharing stories about her home, world. Not just the science, but the small details. How flowers there sang in harmony with the wind. How her people celebrated the changing of seasons with light displays that painted entire cities in shifting colors. "Do you want to go back?" David asked one day. The question had been bothering him for weeks. Lyra was quiet for a long time. "Even if I could, I'm not sure the world I remember still exists. And this place, this life with you, it's become more real to me than memories of home." Everything changed when David got sick. It started as just a cold, but within days, he was burning. With fever and could barely breathe. Lyra was beside herself with worry, pacing the house like a caged animal. "Human medicine is so primitive," she said, checking his temperature for the 10th time that hour. "On my world, we could cure this in minutes." "Then why don't you?" David croaked from the bed. "Because healing someone from another species is dangerous. Our energy systems are so different. If I make a mistake," she trailed off, but David could see the fear in her glowing eyes. By the third night, David's fever spiked to dangerous levels. Lyra sat beside his bed, holding his burning hand, and David could see she was crying. Actual tears that sparkled, like liquid starlight. "I can't lose you," she whispered. "You're the first person since Theodore who's treated me like family instead of just an interesting alien. If you die, then save me," David managed to say. "I trust you." What happened next was the most incredible experience of David's life. Lyra placed her hands on his chest, and suddenly he could feel her energy flowing into him, not just healing his body, but connecting with his mind, his memories, his very soul. For a few moments, they weren't two separate beings. They were one consciousness experiencing the world from both human and alien perspectives simultaneously. When it was over, David's fever was gone and he felt better than he had in years. But something else had changed, too. He could sense Lyra's emotions now, even when she was in another room. And she could feel his. "I'm sorry," Lyra said, looking frightened. "I didn't mean for this to happen. The healing process created a psychic link between us. It should fade in time." But David wasn't sorry at all. The connection felt natural, like a part of him that had always been missing was finally complete. Their peaceful recovery period ended when Dr. Patricia Hawkins showed up at their door. David answered the doorbell to find a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked like a college professor, but something about her made David nervous. "David Richardson? I'm Dr. Hawkins. I worked with your Uncle Theodore for many years. We need to talk." Lyra appeared behind David, and Dr. Hawkins's eyes widened with recognition and something that looked like hunger. "Hello, Lyra. You look well. I've missed our conversations." "Patricia," Lyra said quietly, "I thought you were still in hiding." "I was, but circumstances have changed." Dr. Hawkins pushed past David into the house uninvited. "We need to discuss the future of our research." In Theodore's study, Dr. Hawkins revealed her true purpose. She had been Theodore's partner in the early days, helping to hide Lyra and study her abilities. But while Theodore had been content to slowly introduce Lyra's technologies to help humanity, Dr. Hawkins wanted more. "Do you realize what we could accomplish?" she said, gesturing excitedly. "Lyra's healing abilities could cure cancer, reverse aging, regrow lost limbs. Her understanding of energy could solve climate change overnight. We're sitting on technologies that could transform human civilization, and you're treating her like some kind of house guest. I'm treating her like family, David said firmly. Dr. Hawkins laughed coldly. Family? She's not human, David. She's a resource, the most valuable resource in the history of our species. David felt Lyra's distress through their mental link and moved to stand protectively in front of her. I've spent the last 5 years convincing certain government officials and private investors that alien technology exists on Earth, Dr. Hawkins continued. They've formed a consortium with unlimited funding to acquire and study any non-human intelligence we can find. They know about this place, David. They know about her. And you led them here, Lyra said, her voice heavy with betrayal. I'm trying to save you, Dr. Hawkins snapped. If you come with me willingly, they'll treat you as a valuable consultant. If they have to take you by force... That's when the alarms started going off again. Through the windows, they could see vehicles surrounding the property. Not just a few SUVs this time, but military trucks and helicopters. Dr. Hawkins smiled coldly. I'm sorry it has to be this way, but the needs of humanity outweigh personal attachments. David felt rage building inside him, not just his own, but Lyra's as well, amplified through their connection. Around them, the lights began to flicker as Lyra's emotional state affected the house's electrical systems. You betrayed Theodore's trust, Lyra said, her voice deadly calm. And now you've betrayed mine. I'm saving our species, Dr. Hawkins shot back. No, David said, surprising himself with how steady his voice sounded. You're destroying the one chance our species had to learn and grow naturally. Lyra isn't a resource to be exploited. She's a person who chose to share her gifts freely. Through their mental link, David felt Lyra's gratitude and determination mixing with his own protective fury. Whatever was coming next, they would face it together. Outside, spotlights blazed to life, turning night into harsh day. A voice boomed over loudspeakers. This is Colonel Martinez with Joint Task Force Alpha 7. The property is surrounded. We require the immediate surrender of any non-human entities for national security purposes. David and Lyra looked at each other, and despite everything, they both smiled. The easy part of their relationship was definitely over. Now they had to fight for the right to stay together. Are you ready for this? David asked. Lyra's hand found his, and her skin glowed with determination. Now I am all yours, remember? That means we protect each other no matter what. The final confrontation was about to begin. The spotlights outside turned the mansion into a fishbowl. David could see soldiers positioning themselves around the property, setting up equipment that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Dr. Hawkins stood by the window talking, into a radio headset with the satisfaction of someone who thought they'd already won. Last chance, she said to David and Lyra. Come quietly, and this doesn't have to get ugly. David felt Lyra's hand squeeze his. Through their mental connection, he could sense her fear, not for herself, but for him. She was terrified that her presence in his life would get him hurt. We're not going anywhere, David said firmly. Dr. Hawkins shook her head. Then you've chosen the hard way. That's when Lyra did something unexpected. She activated a hidden panel in Theodore's desk, revealing a complex control system that made the basement laboratory look simple. Theodore built more than just a hiding place, she said, her fingers dancing over controls that responded to her touch with soft musical tones. He built a fortress. The mansion transformed around them. Metal shutters slammed down over every window. The walls hummed with energy as defensive systems came online. Outside, David could hear shouting as the soldiers' equipment started malfunctioning. Electromagnetic pulse generators, Lyra explained. Theodore learned from my technology. Their vehicles won't work now and their communications are scrambled. But David could see the effort was draining her. Her usual glow had dimmed, and she was breathing hard. How long can you keep this up? He asked. Not long enough, she admitted. And David, There's something else. Something I haven't told you. Even as chaos erupted outside, Lyra led him to another hidden room, one that contained what looked like a sophisticated radio telescope pointed at the sky. 3 days ago, I received a signal from space, she said quietly. Survivors from my world. They've been searching for me for 20 years. David's heart sank. They're coming to take you home. They're coming to rescue me. Yes. But David, Lyra turned to face him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. My people are dying. There are less than 1,000 of us left, scattered across 3 different refugee colonies. They need my knowledge to develop sustainable life support systems. Without it, my entire species will be extinct within a generation. Through their mental link, David felt the weight of her guilt and responsibility. She loved him. He could feel that clearly now. But she also carried the burden of being possibly the only person who could save her people. When will they arrive? David asked, though part of him didn't want to know. Tomorrow night. Their ship can only make one trip due to limited fuel resources. If I don't go with them, she couldn't finish the sentence. Outside, the soldiers had regrouped and were setting up larger equipment, things that looked like they could punch through even Theodore's defenses. We need to move, Lyra said. Theodore built escape tunnels that lead to safe houses throughout the mountains. We can hide until my people arrive. For the next 18 hours, David and Lyra played a deadly game of hide-and-seek across the Washington wilderness. They used Theodore's network of hidden shelters, moving from one to another as Dr. Hawkins's people tracked them, using increasingly sophisticated technology. During their brief moments of rest, David learned more about Lyra's past than she'd shared in all their weeks together. She told him about her family on the home world, parents who were probably dead, a younger brother she'd been training in the healing arts, friends who had scattered to the stars and might never be seen again. I was supposed to be gone for 6 months, she said as they huddled in an abandoned cabin, watching military helicopters search the valley below. Just a quick survey mission to evaluate Earth as a potential colony site. I never got the chance to say goodbye properly. Is that why you have to go back? David asked. It's why I think I have to go back, Lyra corrected. But David, I've been thinking about what Dr. Hawkins said, about the good my knowledge could do for humanity. Maybe there's another way. That's when David made the decision that surprised them both. Go, he said firmly. Lyra stared at him. What? Go with your people. Save them. It's what you need to do. But David, I can't leave you. The psychic connection we share, if I go too far away, it could damage both of us. David smiled sadly. Then I guess I'll have to come with you. The idea hung in the air between them like a physical thing. David, a human who had never even been on an airplane until last month, volunteering to leave Earth forever to help rebuild an alien civilization. That's impossible, Lyra whispered. The journey alone could take months, and even if you survived it, you'd be the only human among my people. You'd never see Earth again. Maybe not never, David said. But even if that's how it works out, I'd rather spend my life helping you save your people than spend it running from mine. Lyra's emotions flooded through their connection. Love, gratitude, terror, and hope all mixed together. You would do that? Give up everything for me? Lyra, a month ago, I had nothing worth keeping. No family, no real friends, no purpose. You've given me all of that. If helping your people means I get to keep you, then that's not a sacrifice. That's the best deal anyone's ever offered me. Before Lyra could respond, their radio crackled to life. Theodore had given them emergency communicators tuned to frequencies Dr. Hawkins wouldn't think to monitor. David, this is Colonel Martinez. We have the cabin surrounded. Dr. Hawkins has convinced my superiors that the alien is a threat to national security. If you don't surrender in the next 10 minutes, we're authorized to use whatever force necessary. David and Lyra looked at each other. Through the windows, they could see soldiers moving into position. Your people's ship, David said urgently. When exactly does it arrive? 8 hours, Lyra replied. Then we just have to survive 8 more hours. But as floodlights blazed to life around the cabin and the sound of approaching vehicles filled the air, David wondered if 8 hours might as well be 8 years. Lyra stood up, her whole body beginning to glow with power. David, I want you to know something. When I first said, "Now I am all yours," I thought it was a burden I had to bear. But these past weeks with you have been the happiest of my life. You've shown me what it means to be chosen instead of just bound by duty. And you've shown me what it means to have something worth fighting for, David replied. Outside, Colonel Martinez was counting down over a loudspeaker. 5 minutes until we come in. David and Lyra held hands as they prepared for what might be their last battle together. But through their mental connection, David felt something new from Lyra, not fear or resignation, but fierce determination. Whatever happens, she said, we face it together. The final countdown had begun. The cabin door exploded inward as soldiers stormed in, but they found nothing except empty rooms and confused equipment readings. David and Lyra had escaped through Theodore's secret tunnel system just minutes before the assault began. They emerged from an underground passage 2 miles away, in the basement of what looked like an abandoned ranger station. But this was another of Theodore's safe houses, equipped with everything they needed for their final stand. The ship will land in 6 hours, Lyra said, checking the star charts on Theodore's equipment. But they can't wait long. If we're not at the pickup coordinates in time, we'll be there, David said with more confidence than he felt. That's when they heard vehicles approaching again. Dr. Hawkins had found them faster than expected. How are they tracking us? David asked. Lyra's expression darkened. Patricia knows all of Theodore's hiding places. She helped him build half of them. But this time, something was different. Instead of soldiers surrounding the building, only Dr. Hawkins approached, carrying a white flag and looking genuinely worried. I need to talk to you, she called out. Both of you. It's about the ship that's coming. Against his better judgment, David let her in. Dr. Hawkins looked like she hadn't slept in days, and her usual confidence was gone. The consortium detected the incoming ship 12 hours ago, she said without preamble. They're planning to shoot it down the moment it enters Earth's atmosphere. Lyra went pale. That ship contains the last hope for my people's survival. I know, Dr. Hawkins said quietly, and I'm starting to realize what I've done. I told them you were a threat because I thought studying you was worth any price. But shooting down a refugee ship... She shook her head. That's not science. That's murder. David felt Lyra's anguish through their connection. Her people had searched for 20 years to find her, and now they would die trying to rescue her. There has to be something we can do, David said. There is, Dr. Hawkins replied. But it requires all 3 of us working together. And Lyra, it means trusting me one more time. The plan was insane, but it was their only chance. Dr. Hawkins would return to the consortium and tell them she had captured Lyra. Meanwhile, David and Lyra would use Theodore's most advanced technology to create a distraction that would disable the military's anti-aircraft systems long enough for the rescue ship to land safely. Why should we trust you? David asked Dr. Hawkins. Because 20 years ago, I made a promise to help protect an innocent being who needed shelter. I broke that promise today, and it's eating me alive. Let me keep it one last time. With 4 hours until the ship's arrival, they put their desperate plan into action. Dr. Hawkins returned to the military base, claiming she had Lyra in custody, but needed time to prepare her for safe transport. Meanwhile, David and Lyra made their way back to the mansion through the tunnel system. The house was crawling with soldiers, but Theodore had built it well. Hidden passages allowed them to reach the basement laboratory without being detected. There, Lyra began powering up, equipment that David had never seen before, devices that could influence electromagnetic fields across hundreds of miles. "This will either save the ship or kill me," Lyra said as energy coursed through her body into the alien machinery. "Theodore and I tested it once on a small scale. I've never tried anything this large." "Then don't do it alone," David said, taking her hand. Their psychic connection flared to life, and suddenly David could feel the vast network of energy that Lyra was tapping into. It was like touching the nervous system of the planet itself. Power lines, satellite networks, radio towers, all connected in ways humans had never imagined. Together, they reached out across hundreds of miles and began systematically disabling every military installation within range. Not destroying them, but simply making their targeting systems give false readings. To the radar operators, the incoming ship would look like a flock of birds. The effort was enormous. David felt like his brain was on fire, and Lyra's glow became so bright he could barely look at her. But it was working. "Ship incoming," Lyra gasped. "Landing coordinates. The meadow behind the house." They stumbled outside, just as a vessel unlike anything David had ever imagined settled silently onto the grass. It was beautiful, all flowing curves and soft light, like a living thing rather than a machine. A ramp extended, and 3 figures emerged. They looked similar to Lyra, but somehow different. Older, more worn by hardship. When they saw her, their faces lit up with joy and relief. "Lyra, of the healing light," the leader said in a voice like music. "We thought you were lost. Forever." "Kento," Lyra replied, tears streaming down her glowing cheeks. "You found me." "We found you both," Kento said, looking at David with curiosity rather than suspicion. "The bond glow around you is visible even to us. This human is truly your chosen companion." That's when the military arrived in force. Helicopters roared overhead, and vehicles surrounded the meadow. But their weapons targeting systems were still scrambled, making them unable to get a clean lock on the alien ship. "We need to go now," Kento said urgently. "Our ship can't maintain shields much longer." Lyra looked at David, her eyes full of love and anguish. "Are you certain about this? Once we leave Earth, there's no guarantee we'll ever return." David thought about his old life, the tiny apartment, the unpaid bills, the loneliness. Then he thought about the alternative Lyra was offering, a chance to help rebuild an entire civilization, to be part of something bigger than himself, to spend his life with the most amazing person he'd ever met. "I've never been more certain of anything," he said. They ran for the ship together as the military closed in. Just before they reached the ramp, Dr. Hawkins appeared, running toward them. "Wait!" she called out. "Lyra, I have something for you." She handed Lyra a data storage device. "Copies of all our research. Everything Theodore and I learned about adapting your technology for human use. Maybe your people can use it." "Thank you, Patricia," Lyra said softly. "This helps more than you know." As the ship began to lift off, David caught a glimpse of the mansion growing smaller below them. Within minutes, they were in space, looking down at Earth as a blue marble against the stars. "Having second thoughts?" Lyra asked, sensing his wonder through their connection. "Not even for a second," David replied. The journey to the refugee colony took 3 months, but it passed quickly for David. He spent his time learning about Lyra's people and their technology while helping design life support systems for their new home. His human perspective proved surprisingly valuable. He saw solutions that the aliens had missed because they thought too much like scientists and not enough like survivors. The refugee colony was on a moon orbiting a distant planet, protected by energy shields that kept out the radiation of space. When David first saw it, he was amazed. The aliens had built a beautiful city of crystal and light, but it was clearly struggling. Food was scarce, equipment was breaking down, and fewer children were being born each year. "We've been slowly dying," Kento explained. We saved our knowledge, but lost our hope. That's where David made his biggest contribution. He understood something about hope that the aliens had forgotten, that it comes not from having all the answers, but from building something better together, one small step at a time. Working with Lyra, he helped establish trade relationships with other alien refugee groups scattered across the galaxy. He introduced concepts from human business and community building that helped the colony become self-sustaining. Most importantly, he helped them remember that survival wasn't just about staying alive, it was about creating a life worth living. 1 year after leaving Earth, David and Lyra stood on the observation deck of the colony, watching Earth rise over the horizon of their new moon. Communication arrays had been established, and they were in regular contact with Dr. Hawkins and a small group of humans who were secretly helping to introduce alien technologies to Earth in beneficial ways. "Do you ever regret it?" Lyra asked, her hand in his as they watched their two worlds slowly grow closer. "Regret what? Inheriting an alien wife and wealth beyond imagination? Meeting the love of my life? Helping to save an entire species?" David smiled. "If I hadn't answered that phone call from the lawyer, I'd still be sitting in my tiny apartment, wondering why my life felt so empty." Lyra's glow brightened with happiness. "When I first said, 'Now I am all yours,' I thought it was the end of my freedom. But it was really the beginning of everything I didn't know I wanted." "And I am all yours too," David said, pulling her close. "Forever." As they watched, a small ship departed from Earth, heading toward their colony. Dr. Hawkins had sent word that a group of human scientists wanted to establish a formal cultural exchange program. Both species were finally ready to learn from each other openly. David's simple life had become extraordinary, not because he'd inherited wealth, but because he'd chosen love over fear, partnership over isolation, and hope over despair. The alien wife he'd inherited had become the human husband she'd chosen, and together they were building bridges between worlds. Their love story had become the foundation for a new chapter in the history of two species, learning that the universe was far less lonely than either had imagined. And it all started with an unexpected phone call and 5 simple words. "Now I am all yours."